make it move. Javante Davis, living young, got room for patience. This a dope podcast, it ain't drugs when we moving bases. Houston, we got a problem, taking off like the Rockets. This a three-man weave, coming at you with topics. Used to hit me with logic, baby, showtime's back. You slow, catch up, you run a 4-9 flat. It's imperative, transitioning from changing the narrative. You can catch this wave from the Marlins to the Mariners. Doing things you can't believe. It's the three-man weave. Come at you with topics. No, you cannot stop it. Doing things you can't believe. It's the three-man weave. We come at you with topics. No, you cannot stop it.
Welcome back, everybody. Want to welcome you into another three-man weave exclusive. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and you know how we really go hard. D Hill, he did his whole Cowboys thing, but now we're saving the best for last. We're going to talk about the Bengals and one of the most impressive draft class of 2020. So without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Blake Jewel. I've been writing for Fansided and Stripe Hype for about 8 months, and so I've been doing that for a while, and I've been a Bengals fan all my life, so this is the first draft I've been really covering. The rest of it has just been as fans, so I got pretty in depth with this one, so it was a good experience.
Nice. And so, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter. It's at bjewel43 and underscore, and then the same thing on Instagram.
All right, nice.
Yeah, that's about all I have.
Not a problem. So, just before we get started, let me know, how is this draft? Does it compare as a fan and then actually covering the draft as a fan? So what would you usually prefer? Did you feel like you got a little bit more in depth in this draft, or you took out some of the enjoyment because you actually had to cover it?
Well, I think it made it a lot more enjoyable just because in previous years you just kind of watch it, and with me as a fan, I didn't really know who we were taking right away. I just kind of would look it up afterwards and kind of have to figure it out then. But This draft, I knew every player we took. I watched film on them in college. I even wrote articles about some of them. So I think it made it even more enjoyable that I knew who we were taking. I knew who I wanted every pick. I knew who was on the board. I think as a fan, it was still fun, but I think just kind of as an analyst and been working on the draft, I think it was a lot more of an enjoyable experience. And I'm already excited for next year's draft. I like the whole process. I think it's a pretty fun process.
Absolutely. And so let's jump right on in. So first overall, Joe Burrow. How do you feel about that pick? There was a lot of talk leading up to the draft that he did want to play in Cincinnati, that we should take Tua. Tua's the better prospect. His medicals came back clear, or Chase Young was the overall prospect. How do you feel about the Joe Burrow pick?
I think they did exactly what they needed to do. It's you heard the rumors all season they didn't want to play here. I think a lot of that was just kind of fabricated just with the media. And I think they need a franchise quarterback. I think it's time. They've been saying that it's a new day and all that stuff. And I think it was time to move on from Andy Dalton and just to get their guy. And Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the draft, And I think they did a really great job with that pick. Burrow's going to be somebody who's going to come in and start right away. And I think that pick just sets them up well for the future, because if you really think about it, offensive line's been one of the biggest needs, and going into next year, you're not going to have to use your first-round pick on a quarterback no matter where it is. You can address needs then. And getting a quarterback on their rookie deal, I think, too, helps. They're going to have money to spend in free agency coming up. So I think I rated it as an A+. I think it was just a great pick. They did exactly what they needed to do.
Agreed. With this pick, I think it was a no-brainer, not just because he had the best season of any college quarterback, but I think if you just look what he's able to bring, I think it will negate our biggest weakness, which is the offensive line, because he's mobile in the pocket. You look at Andy Dalton the last, I'd say maybe 2-3 years, he's been a shell of himself. Once he steps back in that pocket, he sees ghosts and he gets happy feet. And it's, he takes his eyes off the receiver, he takes his eyes off, downfield, and he just tucks it and run, or he melts and he takes that sack. And I think watching Joe Burrow and his poise in the pocket, I think that is one of the biggest strengths that he has, is not keeping his eyes on the rush, but actually on the receivers, looking downfield, always having an escape route, but not seeing who's coming, not getting happy feet. And he's mobile. He's not afraid to take off and run, and he is an athlete. Mr. Ohio in basketball, he's an athlete. He can go ahead, he can run, and it's an underrated part of his game. And so I believe it will negate some of the weakness on our offensive line. The I have hope that Michael Jordan will take another step. Jonah Williams, he'll be able to be better than what we were trotting out there last season. My worries are really on the right side of that offensive line. So if he's not worried about his blind side, I think it's just one less thing that we have to worry about. And then he has weapons. If, as you saw the report, Zach Taylor, they asked for his top 10 plays and to put it in our system. And if you look at it, they go a lot of 5 wide. We have a lot of weapons. And so it's going to be hard to just send blitzes. You might have to get home with 4. I think that'll take me to the next pick. Pick 33. How do you feel about T. Higgins?
Well, let's look going into the draft a couple weeks, probably 2 weeks prior. I didn't really want to go receiver. I had feelings. I just wanted to go offensive line.
Yes.
And, so that was kind of the big concern. And then when T. Higgins, I had him really highly rated. He's my 4th ranked wide receiver. So in my head, if we we're going to take a receiver, I wanted it to be T. Higgins. And so I'm happy with the pick. I think it was a good pick, and they seem to be comfortable with their offensive line right now. And I think it's going to be something they'll have to address in the future. But getting that weapon, and I think T. Higgins, I just have a feeling he's just going to be stars. Just some guys you just have feelings for about that, and I have a good feeling about T. Higgins, and I think, I think he's going to be, AJ Green's kind of getting up there in age.
Yes.
Don't know how long he'll be around. He could stick around for a little while longer, but I think T. Higgins is a guy that's going to grow with Joe Burrow. He's just going to be like kind of how AJ Green was with Andy Dalton, and they hit their peak at the same time. They played very well together. And I think that's going to be kind of what we're going to see is just the Burrow to Higgins. We're going to see it for a long time.
Absolutely. Coming into this pick, I felt it would be a wide receiver, but just as I saw Josh Jones sliding down the board and make it to us at 33, I really wanted us to go ahead and pull the trigger because I know you want to get your first round pick, though, that quarterback. You want to get him those weapons, but you also want to protect them. My biggest example, I would say, would be David Carr. When David Carr went to the Texans, he had no one up front, and he just got punished. He got his ass kicked constantly. And so I didn't want that to be the future for Joe Burrow, just to constantly get back there. Every drop back, he's got someone in his face. So I wanted Josh Jones to be the pick, and there was a lot of rumblings coming out of the Senior Bowl that a lot of people like Denzel Mims. So thought about maybe that could be the pick at 33 as well. But definitely T. Higgins, that was something that I was impressed with, that they made that pick. And I also feel he'll mesh and join the culture well because he's a Bengals fan. He's a self-proclaimed Bengals fan. He admires AJ Green growing up. And so you kind of want that as you're building a culture. You want those players who actually want to be here. And so I think that's something that we'll be able to live off of. And so, I see you like the T. Higgins pick. How do you think he'll fit in with the offense?
Well, I think kind of what we're going to see right away is I think he's going to come in and start. I think he's going to be that kind of number 2 wide receiver with A.J. Green. I think they're going to go with A.J. Green as their 1, and then kind of Higgins as 2 wide receiver, and then they're going to have Boyd in the slot. And I think what we're going to see a lot of is I think T. Higgins is going to be a playmaker right away. Maybe not have like the stats jumping out the books or anything. But I think if A.J. Green returns to the form that we've seen him at in the past, coverage is going to be more worried about A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd. And I think Higgins, he has some sneaky, like after the catch, he can move, he can make people miss. And I think that's something that we're going to see right away is just with that 5 wide, like you mentioned with Burrow. I think Higgins is going to get a lot of targets. Maybe not as many as Boyd and Green, but I think he's going to get plenty of targets and maybe can show us what he can do. And I think right away we're gonna see him get some good production his rookie year.
Absolutely. I think with the addition of T. Higgins, it actually made our wide receiver core a sneaky strength of our team now. Because if you look, just seeing what Auden Tate did last season, and he's your 5th receiver on the depth chart, most likely. I think you're going to cause a lot of mismatch problems there, and then just with the size, I think you having AJ Green, T. Higgins, and Auden Tate on the roster, that's just a bunch of bullies who are going to win a lot of 50-50 balls. And once again, it works to Joe Burrow's strength. He loved that back shoulder throw at LSU. They talked about him not having elite arm strength, but what he does is have elite ball placement. And it's going to be hard to guard that back shoulder throw, sending T. Higgins, AJ Green, Auden Tate, even Tyler Boyd down the field. And, they stop on a dime and catch that back shoulder throw. So I think it's going to make for a very fun offense. And then we still have Joe Mixon in the backfield. So I think that's a really good pick. As far as round 3, the Logan Wilson pick, how did you feel about that?
Well, with that pick, I wanted to go offensive line once again, but I also knew that linebacker was a huge need. And Akeem Davis-Gaither was who I wanted in the 3rd round because at that time we didn't know anything about the injury, the reason he was dropping.
Right.
So in my head, he just fell, and because I had him going late 2nd round. So I thought, he fell to us in the 3rd round. Well, I want him there. Well, they took Logan Wilson, and who I'm happy with. They wanted a 3-down linebacker, so they've been wanting all off season, and they got one with Logan Wilson. He's an athlete, he's a effective tackler. They got a good player there in the 3rd round. Then to be able to go and get Akeem Davis-Gaither in the 4th round, I just think that's a good 1-2 punch getting your linebackers.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good sign just the Bengals recognized the need that they had, which was linebacker, and they went out this offseason and they attacked it. I think that's something that it's just a good sign for the future.
And that's one thing that I was really impressed with this coaching staff because they identified their guy and they went and got him. They assessed their team. They figured out what they felt the weaknesses were. And instead of just going, okay, this is what we need, we're going to plug in this hole, and regardless of who's on the board, they actually realized that there are multiple needs on the board. And they didn't say, hey, let's jump and get a linebacker in the 2nd because we have a need at linebacker, or let's jump and get an offensive tackle here in the 2nd or 3rd because we have a hole at offensive tackle. They felt, okay, this is the person that we have highest on our board. We're going to take them because, look, we're going to make it work, and we need talent. And that's why I'm not too upset with the back-to-back Logan Wilson, Akeem Davis-Gaither pick. But just hindsight, it makes me think like, gosh, I really wish we could have grabbed Josh Jones from him sliding all the way down to the 3rd, and we still grab a linebacker who's athletic, who can cover and is not afraid to tackle. And I know he had the injury concerns, but I just felt you would maximize your draft class by getting multiple picks. I mean, not multiple positions, and still plugging certain holes and getting players that actually can contribute early. I understand that Jermaine Pratt and Josh Bynes are really the only 2 viable linebacker options that we have on this roster. So I understand going back to back, but just looking at it, I'm not as high on the offensive line as they are. So unfortunately, it's just like, damn, I really wanted that offensive tackle, especially seeing Josh Jones being a talent that people talked about possibly being a late 1st, early 2nd round pick to drop to you, not only at your 2nd round pick, but your 3rd round pick also.
Yeah, I think what happened there is I don't think they really anticipated Akeem Davis-Gaither making it to the 4th. I think I think they would have taken Josh Jones in the 3rd if they knew they could have got Akeem Davis-Gaither in the 4th. But then you got to think if they would have they really wanted to fix their linebackers. So if they would have took Josh Jones, and then next thing you know, in the 4th round, ADG and Wilson are gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think what this means now is like next year they're just going to have to attack offensive line, 1st round, maybe go 1st and 2nd round. Because if you look at the roster, it's young. There's not too many holes besides the offensive line. So next year maybe spend some money, use your first 2 picks, and maybe this doesn't turn into, bad decision taking 2 linebackers back to back. And next year if they get a good offensive lineman in the 1st round, and I just think taking 2 linebackers could pay off in the long run. I think it seems like the smarter move. I still kind of wish they would have got one sooner, but I'm pretty happy with the guys they got, and I think they are too. I think they made a good move in the long run.
Absolutely. So the round five pick for me was a little bit of a head scratcher, just with some of the talent that was on the board with Khalid Kareem out of Notre Dame. He doesn't offer much in the pass rush game. He does set the edge well. He does stop the run. But with Curtis Weaver on the board, and I believe Bradley Anae was still on the board at that point in time, the Khalid Kareem pick kind of caught me off guard. How did you feel about it?
Well, that one kind of, I mean, at first I was a little mad about it. I've been watching some more film on him. I have it as a B minus now, which isn't awful.
Yeah,
it's a solid pick. But Netane Moody was there. That's who I really wanted, and I think Moody is someone that you can get in the 5th round and can start. I thought he could start right away because I think he had his injury concerns, and that's the only reason he was there.
Exactly. I was going to say his medicals were really bad. He had a lot of injuries, but he was a mountain, man. He was moving people out there, and I thought that would have been a great pick. He was one of the people that was like, he's on the board. He's on the board. Let's do it. But unfortunately, they didn't do it. But I know you said you raised the pick up to a B minus for Khalid Kareem. What did you originally have him rated when he came off the board?
So what I was doing was at the draft, it's like I didn't want to even think about it. As soon as the pick got taken, I'd give my grade, like immediate reaction. I had a C right away. It's just because, I mean, I watched a little bit of him coming into the draft, but I didn't watch a lot. Just had a little bit of an idea of him. And then also, Weaver and Anae being on the board, I think they're both better options. But I think what they're getting overall is just in the 5th round, they were looking for depth on the defensive line. I think that's what they're getting with Kareem. He's not going to be a huge playmaker. You're not going to expect him to start. It is the 5th round. And so I think what they're getting is they're just getting a dependable depth piece for their defensive line. He's going to be a guy that can step in if needed. And if not, like you said, he's a team captain at Notre Dame. He's going to be a leader. Just a good guy you want on your roster.
Absolutely.
So I think a B minus would be a pretty good grade for it. I can see how people go a little lower considering who was there. The 2 other edge rushers and Moody. So, I really wanted to go Moody, but overall it's not too bad of a pick. I'm a little happy with it.
Absolutely. So I know you wanted to see Netane Moody get off the board in round 5. With our round 6 pick, he was actually still on the board. Instead, we went Hakeem Adeniji out of Kansas. And Moody went 1 pick after. How did you feel about the Adeniji pick over Moody?
Well, I was at this point, I was just kind of shocked he was still there because, like I said, I wanted him in the 5th round. And for him to make it to the 6th, I was like, oh, they got to take him. But I think that Adeniji is someone they had higher on their board. He's a little bit more versatile. He can play tackle. He can play guard. In the 6th round, you're looking for depth. And I think they're getting a guy that can step in anywhere, really, if needed. He can play guard or tackle. And, he's just another guy that they wanted on their offensive line. I think since he was higher on their board, I think he was some mock drafts had him going in the 4th round. So I think overall, I think it was a pretty solid pick. I think I came out with my ratings today. I think I had him as A minus, just considering how highly he was rated, and then kind of fell down a little bit. So I'm pretty happy with that pick. I wanted Moody, but like I said, it's the 6th round. You're just looking for just kind of depth at that point, and they got more versatility. So I think it was a pretty good pick.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Definitely Moody was on my wish list as well. But getting someone who doesn't have the injury concerns and just being a Bengals fan and knowing how we've been snake bitten by injuries when it, comes down to it, I think someone with a clear bill of health, I believe it would be helpful. Injuries are always unpredictable, but just having that clean history is something that probably gives them a little bit more peace of mind. And so I don't mind the pick. I actually think that I'm with you. I think it actually, as I stepped back and realized, okay, Adeniji, he's very versatile. He can step in at guard. He can eventually grow to be a tackle. He can put on some more weight and actually be your blindside anchor. Who knows what may happen. I really enjoy this pick. I really think that he may come in and able to fight for that swing tackle position, if not that right tackle position with Fred Johnson to overtake possibly Bobby Hart. So if you have a guy who can come in, compete right away, and get at least to the 2nd position on the depth chart from a 6th round pick, I think you knocked it out of the park right there.
I think – oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just to say, I think in the 6th round, a lot of people kind of weren't too happy with it because they just want a starter.
Right.
it's like you're not going to get a starter immediately in the 6th round. So I think, there's still the fan in me that was just kind of like, oh, I hope they can get Moody. He can start 6th round pick. But just kind of looking at it, I think they made the right decision. And going into the 7th round, they made one of my favorite picks. So I think up the first 6 rounds, I think they did a really good job and just kind of getting their starters, then getting their depth and their leaders. And I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, and I think, as you alluded to, this 7th round pick, I think this might have been, just when it comes to value, I think this might have been the Bengals' best pick of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about the injury history and how they felt about taking players with injury history, but this is a 7th round pick. For most teams, this is a throwaway pick. You're just hoping that you can get a special teams player out of this. But they took Marcus Bailey out of Purdue. He's had, I believe, 2 ACL injuries. But if you turn on the tape, man, this guy, he's a short tackler. He flies around the field. He has a nose for the ball. And if he's healthy, who knows? He could possibly be an early day 2 pick. What do you think about this Marcus Bailey pick?
Well, I was watching it, and like around the 5th, 6th round, I missed a couple picks. I watched the whole draft, and so I didn't even really think about him still being there. I'd assumed he was gone already. And I was looking at the board of who was available, and I didn't really see him. And then they announced him for the 7th round pick, and it was awesome. It was a great pick. And like you said, look at the tape. He's a great player. And I think if he wouldn't have had those injuries, I think he would have been, like you said, a day 2 pick. And getting him in the 7th round, if he stays healthy, that could be a home run pick, one of the best picks of the whole draft. And I think what this pick did is just they needed to fix their linebacker core, and they did. I think
Absolutely.
with Josh Bynes, Logan Wilson, ADG, Bailey, I think they fixed it in one draft and one free agency. So now I think what this allows them to do is linebacker, I don't think, and defensive back really, if you look what they did this offseason, isn't as much of a need anymore. Next year, they can see what happens in this next season, and they can then attack that in the offseason next year. So I think they wanted to fix linebacker, and they did it well. I think this pick really capped it off. They had a great offseason. This was an awesome pick for the Bengals.
Absolutely, because for the defense, we've had some solid frontline starters up and down the depth chart this offseason, but this draft really solidified it. It solidified the depth that we need, especially bringing back now Josh Tupou on the defensive line. You have him behind DJ Reader, Geno Atkins. We still have Andrew Brown to help, kick inside, play the edge. We're a little bit thin at edge rusher with only really having Carlos Dunlap, Sam Hubbard, and Carl Lawson who can really get after the quarterback. But just being able to have those bodies on the inside is going to eat up a lot of space and eat up a lot of blocks to free them up. And I think we won't have to give Carl Lawson so many snaps to hopefully keep him healthy, because he was one of those picks that if he was able to stay healthy, it would have been a home run pick, because he was a 4th round pick but had some great tape, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And it's proven true still in the NFL. But if we can keep Carl Lawson healthy, I think overall our defense is going to surprise some people just with the talent that we added on the back end. Now having Von Bell to go along with Jesse Bates and Sean Williams, and then bringing in Trey Waynes, who is basically a faster Dre Kirkpatrick who can tackle, and Mackenzie Alexander is a good replacement for Darqueze Dennard. I always felt like Darqueze Dennard was probably one of the best tackling slot cornerbacks in the league, but he's willing there, and he still has a nose for the ball. He makes plays, and he'll get in there, and he can cover. So I think it was overall our defense. We really, really upgraded our defense this offseason, and I think we're going to surprise some people. How do you feel about the additions along with the draft as far as the defensive unit?
Well, I think this defense, I think they're fixing to be really good. I think it's you might see a little, with chemistry issues, because you're going to have a lot of new starters, a lot of new players on this defense. So I think the first year may not be up to expectations initially, but I think when they get the hang of it, get kind of situated with each other, I think it's going to be a great defense. You look at everybody they got, and they're still young for the most part. And I think what we're looking at is potentially one of the best defenses in the NFL down the road.
Yes.
And so I'm pretty happy with what they did this offseason. You know, the defense really struggled last year, but I don't really have the number on top of my head, but I was looking at it earlier. They're going to have like a number of new starters, a lot of them. It's going to be like a whole new defense out there. And I think what we're looking at is just a much improved defense, and I think it's going to help Joe Burrow too a lot, just to get the ball back in his hands, keep the opposing score low. So I think this is a promising sign not only for the defense, but also for your rookie quarterback coming in, going to get some help on the other side of the ball.
Out of this rookie defensive class, who do you think is primed to make the most immediate impact?
For the Bengals?
Yes.
Okay. I think immediately it's going to be Logan Wilson, because not just because of the round, because like I said earlier, ADG has a little bit of medical issues. Kareem's is kind of a death piece, and like for the most part right now. And then Marcus Bailey is is a 7th round pick. So I think Logan Wilson, they wanted their 3-down linebacker, and he's who they got. So I think Logan Wilson's going to step in. I don't think they do that 4-2-5, so I don't know if he'll start right away, because it looks like it's going to be Bynes and Pratt. But I think Wilson's going to get a lot of playing time this year. And whether it be rotating or eventually taking over a starting spot, he's going to play a lot. And I think you're going to see him get a lot of tackles. And you might not see him in coverage a whole lot, do well in coverage a whole lot right away. But I think it's something, because he's a sneaky athlete. He's a really good athlete. So I think the best bet to produce the most out of the rookie class is going to be, for the defense, going to be Logan Wilson.
I agree. Just digging into Logan Wilson a little bit, finding out he was such an athlete in high school and still translating that into college. I know he played at Wyoming, but he still flashes on tape, and I have to agree with you. I think he'll probably be the one who has the early impact on the defense. I think he'll be able to supplant Josh Bynes, at least in passing situations, because he may not be great in coverage as a linebacker early on. I think he does have the athleticism that Josh Bynes doesn't really possess. Well, he'll be able to get on the field often and early in those passing situations to really make an impact and accrue some tackles and really show and really bite his teeth in this defense. And as far as offense, obviously Joe Burrow, with Andy Dalton being released, looks like he's going to be the day one starter. So I won't really say who do you think can make the immediate impact on the offense, but really, what do you see from Joe Burrow in the offense? Starting on, how do you feel? Just with the prospects and with the talent that he has, how he'll fare early on in this season.
Well, I think we're going to see him do pretty well. I think the first year, I think it's fair to have good expectations for him, high expectations, especially with the weapons he's going to have, and with Jonah Williams coming back. So I think we could see some really good production right away in his first year. And I think with AJ Green coming back too, going to be healthy, hopefully. I think they could see a really good connection there between those two, and just really excited to see what he can do in his first year. Excited to see him play in a Bengals uniform.
Absolutely. So overall, with the Bengals draft, how would you rate the Bengals draft 1 through 7, just overall?
I have it as an A-, so I'd go like a 6. Probably is a pretty good draft. I think they could have done a little bit better addressing the offensive line, and I think they could have maybe done that a little sooner. So I have it as an A-. But overall, I think it was a pretty good draft, and it was really what they needed to do. And I'm glad they did really well, and really excited to see these guys play.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. The one thing that I really wish that they would have done is address the offensive line a little bit sooner. But I can't give it anything less than an A, just because at the end of the day, you feel like you have your franchise quarterback. And that's where you start. That's where a good team has to begin, is getting that franchise quarterback, and you put the pieces around them. And one thing that you said earlier, having a solid defense will allow us to not play from behind as often, and possibly utilize the running game, and not just have to put our rookie quarterback in passing situations where the defense can pin their ears back and make us one-dimensional. So just even addressing the weaknesses on the defense, I still believe that, I can't give it anything less than an A. I think this might have been one of the best Bengals drafts in recent memory, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it was. I don't really remember many drafts. It was, the one this is the one I've watched the most, and I'm definitely really happy with it. Last year's, when you look back on it, wasn't very good. So I think if we get more drafts like this in the future, the Bengals are going to be around for a while. It was a really good team, especially getting Joe Burrow, their franchise quarterback. So this draft was what they needed to do, and it was a great draft. And hopefully next year they can go get those offensive linemen, and then see what other holes they have. So overall, I think it was a great draft. I'm really happy with it.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I think if we have another draft like this next year, we could definitely be a team to contend with. Every team in our division drafted really well outside of Pittsburgh, in my opinion. So I just believe that the AFC North is going to be a dogfight as usual. But there's a lot of young talent in this division. And I think the Bengals are going to put their noses right in there now that we have a good, solid quarterback and a good young core. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a little time, and because the Browns, much I hate to say it, they're looking good. The Ravens are probably going to be even better than they were last year.
Unfortunately, yeah.
The Steelers are always tough. So I think right away it's going to be kind of hard for them, new young team. But I think overall, a couple years ahead, they're going to be they're going to be fighting for the division title. I think maybe give it a year or two, maybe not have too high expectations for next year. I think when Burrow gets the hang of it and the whole team gets in, I think it's going to be – I just think they're eventually going to be fighting for the top. It's going to be between the Ravens and Browns, I think. Because I think the Steelers are kind of trending down just a little bit.
Absolutely.
But they're always going to be tough, so that's one thing you got to take into account. But the Ravens and Browns are both trending up, so I think that it's just going to be a fight with them to see who can kind of run the division for the next 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say, Blake, once again, thank you for joining me doing this draft recap for the Bengals for the Three Man Weave podcast. Once again, let everyone know where they can find you and find your work as well.
It's at BJewel43_ on Twitter. I have all my work, all the links, everything there. You can just find me there.
All right, perfect. Thank you for joining me. And once again, guys, you can find us at 3manweave_ on Twitter, Instagram, at 3manweave on Facebook. Email us all your questions, topics, or if you have anything you want to hear us talk about in general at podcast.3.man.weave@gmail.com. Once again, thank you, Blake, for joining me. And
no problem.
Look forward to talking to you soon, man. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, anytime. I had a good time. Thanks.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Doing things you can't believe. It's the 3-Man Weave. We come at you with topics. No, you cannot stop it.